남도 주된 세계 사실된 된된 방면을 연구를 실현이 되나와 주변서 도전도 강도라 저절로 도감지스 성유바지를 상보제배 주제 인근등 예외 역단 주장 계속해서 나의 생계지면로를 리감서를 민도단 비즈 rem니에 남절로 점하자 대신 구시엔주 원들sembe 용세라마 주버르체라데 야오 공도 양다 라마다 담에 주제 발라랑규지 서더 람제 윤데라 존nem도제 장게 공방용도 uh, please listen to the Dhamma teaching through generating your mind towards the bodhicitta. And so I will be continuing from the precious human life from the last weekend. and I hope everyone did a meditation on precious human life, especially reflecting your mind on the position of the four, eight leisure and so on, so that the mind can be more aware of our human possibility. So, and actually, during this course, I will not go more further on the uncommon practice starting from the refuge and the Vajrasattva and also the mandala and Guru Yoga. And this will be maybe next year. This time will be more focused on the mind training. So it is very important that we should not just think that the common mind training is just a small thing. It's not like this. The four common mind training is the very kind of the basic ground to develop all the practices. When there is no proper mind training from the very basic ground, and no matter how much kind of the practices you do, or what kind of higher tantra instruction you receive, I will not say it will be useless, but there won't be a good, a very effectful result. Therefore, it is very important to have the first common mind training, especially the four kind of the common practice, such as the precious human life and impermanence in cause and effect and force of samsara. Those, what we call it, renunciation. So even though there are many kind of mind training, but to to be more easy to begin with, it would be the beginning with the precious human life. And it is also said, even though such as the Trungkur or the yoga, if there is no proper renunciation of the mind training, then no matter how much of the kind of body exercises you do, it will be no, it won't, be much meaningful as a tantric practice. As it same goes to any kind of practices. So it is for me personally. I have showed great, qualified, and also a very kind master in through my whole life. And for example, for me, even though the refuge practice, or whether it is the purification of Vajrasattva mantra practice, or the visualization, or it is the mandala, or is the Guru Yoga. For me, the most kind of changing in my past, it was the mind training itself with the proper good master, and through his very simple understanding and showing the experience, somehow I felt very much kind of appreciation towards the master, and be more calm whenever I receive his teaching. And whenever, whether the teaching itself is about mind training or any kind of teaching, nonetheless, I feel very much kind of being non-attached to myself, not attaching towards the master, not attaching to the environment. I feel very much kind of separated from the worldly kind of attachment. And the more the training of the mind he teaches, I feel like the more I gain the wisdom, and somehow the mind was like kind of not touching towards the ground, not flowing up on the sky, but being in the very middle kind of state, where all the conceptions and all the those kind of thoughts just arise and fades at the same moment. And even though the receiving the teachings, even though there were not that much detail on the teaching itself, but just a simple act, a simple word, through his physical expression. That is enough to understand the whole picture of what he's trying to point out, what he's trying to show the view. And through this, the blessings are there. The mind training itself doesn't need to be very much specific point out. It's just naturally arising within two person, just naturally. And through this, the unfading faith towards the master, without any force to have a strong devotion towards the master, but just understanding the reality make us happy, and that brings a very strong joy, first towards the mind, and then the physical form, and then the appreciation towards the master. Then there is naturally a bond that never fades away. So in that way, the impermanence understanding is there. No need to be specific, introduce you. But it is very much kind of naturally understanding. But when it comes strongly about impermanence, the precious human life, at the very moment our mind becomes instability, the mind becomes very much eager to do something. But when there is a good support of a master, but at the same time you will feel the satisfaction, so that when we seek, mostly we seek because we don't have something within ourselves. So we try strongly, eagerly to have the salvation from the other. But when there's a proper explanation and the guidance from the master, the salvation always there. We feel the presence. We feel the satisfaction somehow deep down, and there is. But what we need is just a clarity to be well understood. So for that, we need to make our life to be understood more clearly, and to be understood more kind of through the guise of the master. And somehow, so we will continue from last time. There are 8 mental conditions unfavorable to Dharma practice. So, I will, as last time, I also requested all of you to remember the numbers and the notes, so that in the future it will be very much helpful when you do meditation. So the first is that having great attachment to your body, possession, and so forth. So those are also the one of the 8 mental conditions unfavorable. So those are considered the obstacles. So Actually, it is very clearly mentioned, so I don't think it is very much necessary to explain more detailedly on that. So mainly, basically, these are the mental strong kind of addiction towards the body and the possession and so forth. And the second, behaving badly due to the extremely occur disposition. Yeah. So those are kind of we should be aware of those. One of the eight unfavorable. And the third,
not fearing the miseries of samsara and the lower realms, no matter how much they are explained.
So these are the third one. And we have the for lacking faith, no matter how much the benefit of liberation are taught, being naturally fond of unvirtuous activities, and the sixth being as interested in Dharma as the dog is in grass. And the seventh, violating bodhicitta and the root vows. And the eighth, violating the samaya you hold with your own guru or the companions. So those are the eight unfavorable conditions for the path of the Dharma practices. So, yeah. So as we continue, these 16 prevents Dharma from arising in your being and are the basis of going to the lower realms. And so rejoice that they have not contained your being in the past, and train in methods to prevent them from arising in the future. So, so far we went through the 16 kind of the numbers. So we have to understand that those kind of the act, those kind of kind of tawa view, those kind of view leads ourselves in making non-virtue and karma, cause and effect, and that becomes a very strong kind of like against to achieve the wisdom which what we want, and so we have to be more aware that if we have those quality in the past or in the present, we have to try to avoid and start a new beginning. So it's all depends on our cause and condition of now, and if we don't have those in our presence, we have to rejoice ourselves that we have a very good path right now. And then we will go the 10 resources. There are 10 resources in total, and 5 are internal and 5 are external. So so we will go through this, starting from the internal. So this you can find great explanation and the many commentaries, but also in Bodhisattva Jaya Avatara by Shandideva, and they have mentioned a lot about this. And also in Juice of Liberation, Dabutachiro.
Yes, the jewel ornament of liberation.
Yes, and this. So we will start with the first. You have obtained the precious human body that is the opposite of the eighth state, the lack of leisures. Meaning is okay. So this is the first. And the so so the human body obtaining a perfect human form. There are some extensive explanation on that, such as attaining the perfect human form of male, female, female, and without any wangbu
Without the faculty to be defective, without any impaired faculties.
Yes, and that's itself is the first internal resource of the first step. And you have been born in a central country in the time of Dharma where the Dharma has spread. So in that case, there are some different kind of explanation. Central country, yeah. So in Tibetan, when we call it Yulvi, mostly it points out where the Buddha Shakyamuni have where the Buddha and Bodhisattva have taken birth mostly, and that counts as a Yulvi, or kind of a country which has the perfect Sangha, and those are considered. And here, individually, it has mentioned where the Dharma has spread, but in some texts, the central country or the country it is mentioning is something that where you can easily receive the teachings of the Buddha. For example, the outer vow as the Pratimoksha, the inner vow, the Bodhisattva, and also those, yeah. So where there is a Sangha member, Gindungite, yoro, Gindungite,
The community of the Sangha.
community of Sangha, Gindungite nani Rabjung Gindungite, Rabjung ro.
Or fully ordained.
So like this, so it considered more approachable, easy approachable towards the Dharma. And those are mainly points out as the center of the country. So far, so we have taken birth in this country, and with that, since your eyes and other sense of faculty are intact, meaning you can understand whatever are thoughts. So it is the same as I mentioned earlier. Can understand whatever you have taught. And the fourth, since you have not encountered wrong view and have entered the fold of Buddha's teaching, you do not have a wrong lifehood. Paseba, Maseba, Tajumba, and Gindu Giyawacheba, 아니 산지기고라 녀송 가서 녜베 콜롱게토네 아니 차 짐바.
So to kill one's mother, to kill one's father, to make a schism in the sangha, to kill an arat, and to hurt a Buddha with hurt a Buddha with the intention to kill him. The fifth,
차카된쇼.
or to draw blood from a Buddha to make the Buddha bleed with the intention to harm him.
Yes. And so this what we call it the five.
The five extreme acts.
And in the Mahayana, there are many tales, stories that no matter how much you have done virtuous in this life, if you have done one of the five extreme acts,
Yes.
yes, then after the death, there is no question that the person will directly born in the hell realms, and this is kind of a thought in most of the Mahayana teachings. So this is considered one of the very highest sin of all. So in Tibetan we also have the term as 참회방아.
The five immeasurable acts, or without limit,
without limit.
Without end.
And 참회바 가인스데 가서 신의 제와 말랭게 발라 바르도기네가 비어로와. 그 바르도기 참데 매네 심마탄에 태양야와 들어야기 주지게 참회했어요.
Okay, it's called borderless acts because normally when one dies, then one is reborn in the bardo before going to the next life. But when one does these five acts, then one goes directly to hell without having the border or the intermediary of the bardo. So one goes straight to the lower realms.
I don't remember exactly which word they are hard, but there were a person during the Buddha's lifetime, and there is a saying that he have son of the king, and there is a saying that although he's in his past, due to his wrong influence, he have killed his own father or made him suffer, and then he died from the difficulty of suffering. And when he met the Buddha, and when he received the teachings from the Buddha, it changed him a lot, physically, mentally. And then he very much regretted on what he have done. And then he kind of practiced the Dharma and did many generous offering for the not only the monks but to the community and all the beggars around the area. So in the end, he somehow achieved a great realization because of the teaching of Buddha. And it is said that even though he, somehow he have realized, but due to the act of 참회방아, one of the 참회방아,
of the five immediate, the act with the five with immediate result.
Yeah. So when he died, he went to hell realm. but he just entered in her realm, but he didn't suffer. It was just like a like young,
He was just born there and then died
and
again.
then he was purified from his this karma, and then yeah. So it is said like this. So so these are the tales, coming from one of the Mayan scriptures, and so therefore it shows that it is very wrong to do the one of the five extreme act or the wrong livelihood. So anyway, so far we have to remember that we haven't done those of the one of those five, and we also need to remember that even though the act to kill our father and the mother is kind of way beyond our concept, but to have the idea of dividing the sangha, this can be happen, and so we have to be also be more aware on our own act, that whether what kind of our speech can lead to dividing into sangha. It will be included on one of those five. So therefore we should be aware not to be even aside of it. 긴딩기 예외게 아니 게 초라 술자며 말리베게 탑시단 거랬어요.
One must be careful not to even go in the direction, or also partially in the direction of making a schism or a separation in the Sangha.
Yeah. Okay, so this. And the fifth, since you address the three Jews that are sure of the refuge, you have faith, many narratives. So having the faith towards the three Jews. So those are the five internal resources. Now we will start with the external resources. So although many universes are formed and destroyed, it is difficult for Buddha to appear even once. However, Shakyamuni Buddha has appeared in this age. So the first from the external resources, enlightened being should be, took birth and should be appeared in the area where we are living. So this is the first. And the second Kasadati Pradya Buddhas and so forth do not teach Dharma even when they appear. However, now the Buddha has taught the profound and vast true Dharma. So from the external, Buddha should be appear and taught the Dharma. So the teaching are the second. And the third, the teaching have remained until now without waning. So that is very much clear. There are many forms of the teachings. Dharma practitioners are not deprived of the dharmic livelihood because of other sentient beings who have renunciation due to illness, aging, and so forth are the sympathetic to them and give them food and clothing necessary. So that did it. Megi Lutoba, Mini, Yulus Geba, and the one was Amarimaretras, Sanji Jiden comes to Jumba, Chusonwa, Anitemba Neba, Indeed, just to Juba, the Jindayo, but Inga Della, Ta Gasore, Shenjonga, Secretary, Shen Joel Rangla, Shen Joel Sangway.
So there are 5 resources that are depending on others. The first is that a Buddha has come to the world, has been born in the world. So this is a central country. And the second is that he has taught the Dharma. The third, I think, is that the teaching remains. So it has remained, it has not disappeared. The fourth is that there are many disciples and people continuing the lineage. And the fifth is that there are jinda or patrons supporting the teaching. So these are 5 circumstances that are 5 resources that are depending on others.
So now, so it continues in total. There are 10 resources and you possess them. So in this year, it's the garden Baljor, Dawaki, Joaju Timbigani, Milurumbu shares everything.
So what we call the precious human body, in short, it's a human body which is endowed with this 18, the 8 freedom and the 10 resources.
And also it continues all the sentient beings naturally do wrong act and very few act virtuously, even among virtues. Ability to maintain the discipline necessary to achieve a human body is extremely difficult. So till here, so here we should know that we all have the question that why we are not in a good place at the very first, position. Instead of we are being the most ignorant person at the very start. In every teaching, 추가래기 나라 이나야 당부 주행이 차지 장장 된거로 뒤에도 당부는 하나도 주행 그 중세 가지나래 당부는 하나도 주행에 가지나 말했어요 이게 저 되래.
So when we teach the Dharma, I'm not quite understanding. There are defects, and I'm not quite understanding what you mean.
Why in the text always starts with the complaining that we are 고주드는 하나도 말이 받아.
From the beginning, why are we talking about ignorance? That we have ignorance, that we have defects, etc. Is that
instead of why we are not enlightened, or why we are not, like why we are put it as a villain at the very beginning, not a hero. So we have to question ourselves, why is that? Because in the very beginning, they talk about the precious human life, which is actually a fact, true that human life is precious. But why it necessarily make us to feel more scared? And why impermanence, showing all the kind of showing everything is not perfect by saying impermanence, right? And cause and effect. and false of samsara, saying that everyone has mistake, everyone is not perfect. Oh, why everything starts with imperfection instead of perfection? Yeah, we have to have this question because that the mind itself is not a perfect nor imperfect. It is just like a clear water, transparent. So it has there is no objection towards it. It is what it is. Not need to be judged, not need to be say, this water is dirty, this is water. There's no conception on that. It's just what there are. But we have the mind has the movement or the action on grasping. So the mind naturally grasp or kind of lemba kala or lembala take or
yeah. Appropriate.
perceive lemba.
Yes, lemba is is perceiving, is taking.
Yes. Yeah, and the mind has the quality of perceiving. That is natural. Perceiving has nothing to do with good or bad. Same as drinking. Just drinking itself is not a good or bad. But if you drink alcohol, if you drink a lot, then there is a side effect. So if you drink like none other than other, it has their own way of result. So in the same way, mind do perceive all the time. And the mind perceive in the three stages. One is ignorance. One is wisdom. One is tangyum.
Neutral.
Mutual.
Neutral. Neither one or the other.
Either one of them. So the mind always perceives these three continuously without stop. So due to strong kind of wrong information from the outer appearance, we started to become more ignorant, the fact not understanding what kind of we perceive the view. So in that way, we mostly, go towards on the ignorance. We move towards the ignorance. For example, in a dream, let's say in a dream, we do perceive an imaginary land, person, and so on. But sometimes we, without any contemplating, we just see them as a very positive, even though it's just an imagination. Sometimes we overreact on the imagination, and sometimes we just become tangyum,
ignorant or neutral without reaction. We ignore it.
So when we cross our limit of being extreme on perceiving and attaching, that lead us to a feeling. And through that, it starts to be more kind of a stronger, solid kind of expression we receive in our mentally and physically, both way. And through that, slowly, the pleasure and the suffering kind of experience we do feel. So that those are the process starting from the perceiving. So how we perceive it, this like the main thing. If we don't know how to perceive it or see it, then we started to create our own emotion and strong. So it, continues till the very end. So in that way, so in the same way, the mind, most often because of the surrounding, because of, the habit we have gone through a lot, we perceive in that way. And so that's why in the many teachings, they strongly mention about to train our mind towards impermanence and see the precious human life and to make a useful of a time of human life and make it very much kind of useful to achieve the wisdom. So in that way, and in this way, So it is said that all sentient beings naturally do wrong acts. So the reason why is that we perceive in a very different way. And it is said that human life can be achieved through whether it is human life or the God kind of a realm life, whatever it is said that this can be achieved from a discipline. So the why discipline plays a big role, we have to think about it. Is that the discipline actually is an act of controlling our mind itself. But that controlling the mind, really transform the path of our habit. When our habit changes, our path changes. And when our path, changes, we have a view as well. And when we die, through the strong discipline habit of not engaging towards attachment, anger, jealousy, hatred, ignorance, whatsoever, that abandoning that, that kind of habit, even though we die, so in the mind, somehow there will be a chance that anger appear, hate, jealousy, like any kind of, we can name it. But when that happened, due to our strong and disciplined habit of the past, somehow the discipline shows a path to give an example, yeah, this is kind of a big revealing that you should be prepared. We all practice Buddha Amitabha. Amidevare. We all imagine, the pure land. We all want to wish a pure land. So what is the pure land? Pure land is just an imagination of our own creation. When we die, there is a very clearly verses mentioned in the text that when I close my eyes and depart from this life, may I externally see the land of Buddha Amitabha. So for that reason, we try to do so many prayers, so many Amitabha chanting. We try to, right now, just now, we are training ourselves that Amitabha is a land where there's no sound of suffering. From the very moment, from the very, present right now, we are creating our land. We are creating a Buddha. We are creating the Dharma. So we have to know that we are preparing our own path. The more stronger we make, and the more easier it will be. So like this, everything depends on our present kind of mind. So we have to remember, it is not a land, from a water and growing the grass, just not. It is our creation mind. So if we can create our own pure land, a Buddha, a miracle, why not we can create hell, all the, suffering. Same goal, it goes and it applies to everything samely. So in that way, we have to know that we are our own protector in the end. So therefore, we have to know that. And so we have to prepare our path. We have to prepare our own kind of journey by going through, going from
to go on the perfect path, to go on an authentic path.
Authentic path. So you now see why is the discipline is very important. For this reason, being in the three lower realm are numerous as the autumn in the earth, while the gods and humans are exceedingly few, and among them a human body capable of practicing Dharma is scarcely attainable.
It's very rarely
attainable. For example, we cannot count the number of insects underneath a single flat rock, but it is possible to count all the people living in one country, yet only a fraction of them practicing Dharma. And among them, those who practice it properly are as rare as stars in the daytime. So this is very clear, and yeah, and yes, in this way, we should understand that even though in Buddhist we do believe reincarnation, and the reincarnation is something happens with our habit and our action of cause and effect of now. And this is very important for us to understand that if we don't know how to use proper kind of human usage, good usage, if no, then even though while being alive will be very much okay, everything is good, perfect, but what about after passing away? So normally in human we say we have the suffering from four. One is birth, and one is aging and sickness, and the last death. Actually, the death itself is not very strong suffering. The process of being dying, now that is suffering. It involves attachment to the wealth, human, and cannot let go from your mentality. Always attach. The more attached, the more, even though you are dying, you are aware that you are separating, but you cannot control the separation to the loved ones, to the wealth, and so on. And you are very much, change yourself on the memory of this life. We try to reflect our childhood memories, teenage, adult, and slowly, everything changes, so on. In the end, we become sit on a spot where everything is not close, not separated yet, but somehow we are in ignorance or confusion, and we continue on that. So that is the suffering. So sometimes even the physical suffering is compared to mental suffering is nothing. The physical suffering is nothing compared to the mental suffering. So like this, the process. So when we have the strong attachment, when we die, so even though the process of dying is not only the suffering of the physical body, but the mental suffering as well. And so on. When we, when we die, in some point, at some moment, we do collapse. We do like a blank out. And slowly, like a dream, everything started to will appear. Depends on cause and condition of right now. And that time, although we don't have the physical body same as right now, but we will have kind of a very sensitive kind of journey, and we cannot control our mind because it is so sensitive that it is very hard to be controlled. Now we are alive, the mind is attached to the body, so therefore we can somehow control our mind, but when we are die, we have very strong, we don't have that much control on our mind. It becomes so sensitive, and then the suffering which we have gone through will again occur in the further future. And then, the suffering never stops until you stop. In that way, some, due to, not being involved with our past memory, somehow we, dissolve in some kind of form. In a way, we take a birth. Let's say any type of animal, and sometimes if it is not a form, we take birth in an illusionary. Sometimes hell, hungry ghosts, or like, and whether it is god realms or demigod, whatever you call it. So in that way, we, take birth. So, so when we think more on that, on the reality of what is being alive, what is meaning of life, and now we started to, wanted to seek something that more meaningful and useful, which is what we call dharma. And right now, all the sentient beings have their own responsible of karma, so that they are distracted on their own ways. So in the real person, it's very rare to find a person, an authentic practitioner who seeks for a meaningful life, not only just beneficial only in the living time, but in the furthermore. So in that way, it is very important to make the human life capable of doing something meaningful. So it continues in that we never know when this body will perish from fire, water, poison, weapon, stroke, lightning, or fall into a ravine or so forth. The cause of death are many, and the condition sustaining life are few, since the only difference between life and death is just the breath wheezing in and out. This body perishes even more easily than the water bubbles. So, yeah. And this is something that we should be aware of it. And I'm not sure how this kind of thing occur in one's life, but because some people, maybe some of you may may or may not, witness what is the death, what is, changes. But in my life, I have seen many death. I have witnessed many animal, especially human, being dying. And somehow this makes us more, it makes me more like inhuman. For example, me, let's say I'm considered a spiritual master, and there are many people come towards me to take blessing and prayers. And I would say within a month, there are more than 100 numbers are mentioned in my ear and the picture, and people passing away one by one. And I have met many people who, is dying. So although in the beginning, we are not very much familiar with the death, the process, we feel it's unacceptable. But when you are used to it, it is something like a process of being a human. And this is natural, and death is not a big thing when you are too used to it, by hearing, by seeing. And in the very moment, and somehow there will be a time that the death scares nobody. It never scares you. It's just a process of being ourselves, being prepared, being more confident on our own journey. So, so in here, what is the main reason to, inform us from this? What is
Why are we Korwa taking birth in samsara?
It's like, what should we understand from this? Yeah.
Okay.
What should we understand from this? Should we understand that we should be scared? No. This is not the practice to be scared of death. But what we should understand is that we have to accept and be prepared so that we will not struggle when we go through this process. And the same way, we have to enlighten to those who are not aware of it, and so that it will be beneficial. So that is what we call the beneficial benefit.
Benefit for others.
Benefit for others. So I will stop here today, and tomorrow we will try to finish the precious human life chapter. Geden rowa mali doje samtate tapshi jorwe chime je nange lamne doje rowa ye sanje nije gombang soje gewa di ye nyo to cha cha chambo tubjo ne rowa jikjang mali de sala kwe para sho sanje kusong nyebe chenlat chunye menjuru denbe chenlat gende meche denbe chenlat chitrango lamba mdro panish. And so you can meditate on that mainly these are the practice of awareness. And so since we have come till here, I would like to request if you could do meditate in birth, aging, sickness, and death in a day. When you wake up, of course, we wake up not fully aware. We wake up from
We're waking up from the sleep of ignorance.
Yeah. So try to, when you wake up, that thing that I have taken birth, and then when the day goes by, think more about the aging, the concept of the aging, and the life of human life, of the worldly life. Try to think more on that, and then try to think more about sickness. Try to sometimes try to be in a position of a person who is suffering, and when you sleep, before sleep, try to think that now I'm preparing to die, and through that, all the process of being ourselves prepared, we have to practice on that. And in the time, you can just chant Mani mantra for compassion and so on, Lojong practice, whatever you can do, but try to the process of being human and the 4 stages, to meditate on that. It will be very much helpful. And think about the breathing you're doing right now. So even though just think that how much difficulty it is when we just stop our breathing. And so in that way, we feel very much appreciated on our living in the same way like this. So these are like kind of one of the training we do during the practice of this impermanence. So it will be nice. And hope this makes beneficial. Thank you.